Pay attention. Rodrigo's ahead of his time.
Oh my gosh, he won the century. He always wants the century. Oh my god, when did he choose a family for? What's up, mi gente? I am starting the day off by giving you the music recap of 2023. Now, this has been a series going on my channel ever since I started. I love music. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in one previous video of this series. In case you didn't watch that one and you're watching this one for the first time, just know I grew up on Sucker Free Countdown on MTV before YouTube. To this day, I still watch music videos. Fun fact, this year, who knows? If you're watching this video, I'm gonna give you a gem. I might or may not be dropping music video. I don't even know if that's gonna make the final cut, but hey, if it does, you heard it here first. Now let's get to my list. And like I just said, my list, my opinion, my top 10 albums of 2023. Halfway through the year, it was looking rough. I was like, am I gonna actually be able to make this video? It looks like right now the state of hip hop may be dead. I put albums on this list that you can listen from beginning to end. The quality of music coming out, like, it's been more based on singles rather than albums. Let's get right into it. Coming in number 10, we have Key Glock with Glaucoma 2. This artist dropped the deluxe version, my favorite song, which happens to be Sucker Free. Young Dolph was the artist that put me on. When I saw his album release, I said, you know what, let me give it a listen. Playing it from beginning to end, I was impressed, but also he made me a listener. Number 9 is the beautiful Lana Del Rey. Now, I don't want to mistake the name of the album. Did you know there's a tunnel under Ocean Boulevard? From the first to the last song, there is a story she's trying to tell you. And maybe the title gives away, maybe it doesn't. It all depends on how you interpret it. And my favorite song off that album is Fish Tales. Number 8. This is the first time this artist has made it to my list. Peso Pluma. And the two songs that got his career rolling, when I looked into the two songs, these songs had not even a month apart that brought him to that mainstream spotlight. I remember listening to his music. It's very catchy, very popular. And after creating this traction from himself, he comes out with his album, Genesis. I listened to it the first time, and I'll be honest, I didn't expect it to make it to this list. I want to give him credit because based on his features, he made me a listener to a whole other genre, which for an artist to do, it's not easy. Like, I've never been into Mexican correo music, so I have to give credit where credit is due. And when I played back this album, I realized it's better than what I thought the first listen through. Now, this is something that I've always enjoyed about making this list. Just the pure fact that if you look at the list, there's not one specific genre that I stick to. Coming in number 7 is Simfa with his La High album. The first time I ever listened to Simfa was on Drake's album, Nothing Was the Same song, Too Much. Since back then, I became a listener of Simfa. He's put a few albums in between that time. This is the one that has been my favorite. This is a vibe album, and when I say a vibe album, you have to be in that vibe. Favorite song of this album is Evidence. Number 6 on my list, Travis Scott with Utopia. Yes, a lot has happened since his last album. I don't want to mention anything, but you know, I know. He was supposed to do the first show of this album in Egypt. It didn't happen. So he had to relocate it and have it at Circus Maximus. Even though I make concert videos, it's tough for me to watch. In this specific case, I actually had to watch the performance because of what had happened. Saw that before I even listened to the album. After watching the concert, I gave it a few days and then I came back and listened to the album. I don't make music, but the production of the music, whether you hear it in your headphones, in your car, in your soundbar, in the club, the production of this album carries out. This was a step up from his last album. Now, one last thing. Travis Scott, I was gonna go to your concert because I've seen videos, the rages. I was ready. Good thing I waited to the very last day to buy the ticket because I don't know what happened. I just know it got postponed. I saw the dates that you're gonna be back in Chicago and it doesn't work with my schedule. I guess I'll catch you on your next tour. And my favorite song of Utopia is I Know. Question mark? We are now at the top 5 albums of 2023. And kicking that off is Metro Boomin with Heroes and Villains. This isn't Metro Boomin's first album, but this is definitely his biggest album to date. Recently, he performed this album months after it came out. After watching that, it just made me realize how good this album is. And it's not only the album, it's the features of the album that kill it. It was tough to pick a favorite song because there's so many on this album, but I settled with Superheroes. Chris Brown, Future on a Metro Boomin beat. Number 4, representing my motherland, Karol G. To me, she has always made good music. Now, the problem with her in the past has been albums. I always feel like she'll make her 3 to 5 songs that are played heavy on the radio that are just popular. But this is the first time, and who knows, maybe it was because of the breakup and the newfound relationship she is in currently with another Colombian, Fade, who didn't make the list this year, but he dropped an album towards the end of the year, and I just have to say, it's a really good album. If that album came out in the summer, maybe it would have been a different story. The one thing about the summer, Karol G not only came to Chicago and performed at Soldier Field and had all the women saying that they're bichotas, she also came to Lala. It happens that the first time I ever go to Lollapalooza here in Chicago was the same year, the same day that she was headlining. I had heard the album, Mañana Será Bonito. Once again, I just heard songs. I really didn't sit down and pay too much attention to the album. After the Lollapalooza performance and after me seeing her live on stage, it definitely gave me a different perspective for her as an artist, but it also made me want to go back and listen to the album. And after listening to it in its entirety, I knew that this album, after the first listen, from beginning to end, it was going to make the top 5 list. Just did not know where it was going to go. It's that good of an album. Coming in number 3, it's Diddy with his album, The Love Album, Off the Grid. Now, is this a lot of foreshadowing after it's all said and done? Who knows? Now, the end of 2023, the storylines overtook the album that he released. Between the lawsuits, the settlements, the accusations, a lot of those things drove the separation of an artist and the person. This list is about albums. And this is a project from first listen. And I'm telling you, the intro, it's not my favorite song, but the intro sets the tone for the whole album. It has a fusion of R&B, pop music, even throws in a little bit of rap. The overall project, and this is another one of those albums that it tells a story from the beginning to the end. And my favorite song off this album is It Belongs to You. I'm not gonna lie, placing the next 2 albums has been one of the toughest things that I had to do this year. But after listening to each album over 20 times from beginning to end, each album, and it's crazy that these albums came out a week apart from one another, taking the number 2 spot. I'm not even gonna say it, I'm gonna show you first. It's the GOAT, Drake, with his album For All the Dogs. Why number 2? Because number 1 is better. That was the toughest choice when making this list, I'm not gonna lie. First of all, if the initials of your album is Fat D, Drake, what are you doing? I get it, but it's like, alright. Anytime Drake drops a body of work, there's always going to be more than 20 songs. Me, as a fan, I've always said this, and this statement's still going to stay true until I see it happen. Drake will release a classic album when he drops an album that is no more than 16 songs. Now, the one thing about this album, and the reason it didn't take the #1 spot, because it's perfect for nighttime. Meaning, when I was getting ready to go out, there's nothing better while driving while drinking. I tried listening in the morning. I tried listening to it at the beach. It just didn't hit. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's still #2 on my list. This album is heavy replay value. Not enough replay value to take over that #1 spot. It's the one, the only, La Cabra de Puerto Rico. Mr. Bad Bunny him fucking self. With Nadie Sabe Lo Que Va a Pasar Mañana. Is it another long title? Yes. Let's just start with that. The titles has always been a hit. And for those of you who don't know, Nadie Sabe Lo Que Va a Pasar Mañana just basically means nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. First of all, this was my favorite intro of any album. Over 6 minutes long with an orchestra type beat. He explained a lot. I'll be honest, I never thought I would see the day that Bad Bunny would take over Drake as #1. But think about it. Drake put Bad Bunny on his album. Bad Bunny didn't put Drake on his album. I'm just saying. The best song off this album is Hecho en PR, Arcángel, De La Ghetto, and Nango Flow. And to see this artist put these 3 other artists that came before him who paved the wave, for him to do what he's doing at this stage of his life has never been seen before. And not only is he putting Spanish music in #1, he's making it a world sound. My favorite song off this album, which has been since it first came out, even though the music video just came out New Year's, No Me Quiero Casar. Now keep in mind, Benito and myself, we're from '94. Now, a lot of his songs, to me, hit differently. And even though I can probably go off for another 10 minutes explaining why this album is so great, that was my list for the top 10 albums in 2023. This is my opinion, my list. My only goal is to try to put you onto some music. If you haven't heard any of these albums, I highly suggest go stream them. If you think there's an album I missed that I should have put on the list, drop it in the comments. And who knows, maybe even you could put me on some new music. One last thing. I did this for last year's video and I liked the idea so much that I'm going to do it again this year. So for the outro of this video, I'm going to share my Apple Music stats. Fuck Spotify. It's Team Apple over here. Now, I don't know what Apple did this year with their list, what date they started and what date they ended, because the list is kind of thrown off from the list that I just gave you. You'll see me at the end of this year with the same shirt, making another top 10 list. So with all that being said, I will see you in the next video.